last meeting. One is the Elections Committee, and we met to bring forth in October a list of candidates. Communications will be sent to each member of the branch that's eligible to receive them, and asking for nominations. Our actual nomination will be the election will be in November, but we hope to at least have a slate at the next meeting in October. Candidates will have been screened to ensure that they are indeed eligible to run. And we're accepting nominations for all of the offices: president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, as well as seats on the executive committee. So that committee will come back again in October with a report upon nominations. And certainly, if you have nominations, you can share those through the website, or at least bring them to us at the next meeting or before. The second committee was in reference to the grant that was shared. We had the representative for the grant to speak to us at the last meeting, and we were able to get another committee to work on getting the background and the basis for the grant. If we are fortunate enough, we will be eligible to get about $1,800 a month for the grant to support all types of the activities that we will have, and the different topics that we're looking at. And right now we're focusing on voter education and registration. So not only just for this election, but also on and on, with special emphasis to work on youth, as well as making sure everybody is empowered with knowledge and information about the voting process and their status. So that is the second committee that we've had. So more from that committee will be coming forth next month too, in terms of more about the project, specifics, the programs, perhaps the timeline as well. So that concludes those two committee reports.
All right, I'll get right back. All right, everybody. All right, we're going to go into our interview, and then we'll come back to the rest of this agenda. Again, we're not Zooming, so if anyone knows anyone that's Zooming that wants to Zoom, please refer them to our Facebook page. All right, today we have a special treat, because I didn't know Dr. Best was going to be doing it, so we're going to move out the way and let the professional take over today. So we have with us, we have Dr. Best here, who is our going to be our moderator for tonight, and she is one of our Newport News School Board members, and so she's going to moderate this on tonight. We missed you the last time. She had left us and went out the country somewhere and didn't love us at all. Just playing. But anyway, when she's here, she's going to moderate this for the night. So can you clap for her as she comes? Clap for Dr. Best, Dr. Terry Best. Amen. Coordinated with a dress and everything, making the school board look good. As you see, it doesn't matter whichever one. You can sit right here, right there. No, I'm going to say something, then you can just. All right. And of course, we have our superintendent, a great superintendent, very thorough, very, very, very thorough superintendent. I remember when he reached out to us as the NAACP when some things were going on as far as the budget, when they came to city council, and had me make a couple of enemies, but it was good because he wanted to make sure that we took care of our kids. How many people know that our kids are our greatest resource? Our children are our greatest resource. And as a former educator, special education teacher, administrator, and principal, I really appreciate the vision that this man of God has. He always looks out for the students. In fact, when he was on the radio show with Brother Bullock and I, he pleaded with the parents to let them understand that we needed them to send their kids to summer school because a lot of our kids had gotten behind because of COVID, because it's hard sometimes to learn on your own online as a child. It is very, very difficult. And so he has a very difficult job as a superintendent because this is, I guess, their second year back since the pandemic. But can you all understand this? You're a 7th grade teacher, right? Kids haven't been in school for 2 whole years. Now, you already have middle school kids when they're going through puberty and everything, okay? Now you have a child who hasn't been in school since 5th grade in your 7th grade class, okay? And so now you're dealing with issues you never had to deal with before because now you have someone who's socially behind for 2 years because they've been at home isolated in school and not really able to grow socially. So he is in a tough position as a superintendent, and he's doing a great job because it's hard to retain teachers right now because of the pressure they're under when it comes to COVID. It's already hard to train children when they're never wrong when they go home. I'm just saying. But it's very difficult when you're dealing with this in the pandemic. So can you give a warm welcome for Dr. George Parker, who is leading us through a very difficult time as a superintendent? Well, I'm going to move out the way probably and let y'all have this so you can sit wherever you want to sit. And I just want to ask the first question since I'm up here, and I'm going to go away. I'm going to ask 2 questions, I'm going to move, okay? Can I do that? She gave me that look like this is my job. But I had talked to him, and it was some questions that I've been getting asked in the community, and I'm gonna leave you with this. What are we doing? What are we doing when it comes to our school safety? What are we doing when it comes to our school safety to protect our kids? And what can we do to retain our teachers? And after that, I'm off, and I'm gonna lead this to Dr. Terry Best. That's 2 of you. I'm sorry. I'm in trouble. Mama gonna get me. I'm moving out the way.
Well, that is a good question, and I know that's on your list, Dr. Best. We're just nearing, or just right around this time frame. We're not celebrating, but we're remembering the 1-year anniversary of a shooting at Heritage High School last year. And for those who remember that incident last year, it was roughly around the 2nd week of school. We started post-Labor Day last year. And we were just really getting our kids normalized to coming back from a pandemic. Getting into schools, coming back, we were focused on safety, not only safety in terms of their health, but just getting safety in terms of routines, getting kids acclimated back into an environment that they had not been in, as Pastor Maxwell just mentioned, in quite some time. And not only that, our staff getting acclimated back to school. A lot has happened since that time, so we had to really go back and define really what are our safety procedures post-incident, and really educate the community on that keeping schools safe is everyone's responsibility. It's not just the responsibility of the superintendent or the school safety team. Okay, school safety starts in the community, and this incident was the result of a community-based issue between some young men. So with that being said, what we have done is we've worked diligently with Chief Drew to increase our physical security, the number of school security that we have on our campuses, and school resource officers. Now moving into this year, all of our middle schools and high schools have school resource officers, and we have rotating patrols of police officers in our elementary, and we also have a presence of school security in our elementary schools as well. So we've increased that with the help of Chief Drew. And if you think the teacher shortage is tough, police officers and firefighters are seeing the same type of shortages that we are seeing in public service in our arena. So he's had to not only bring on a lot of new people, train them really quick, and then take some of his experienced staff to be trained to be school resource officers over the course of this year, so he could adequately support us through the school resource officer program. So I want to give him some accolades for that and that commitment to Newport News Public Schools. Additionally, we've looked at some of our monitoring systems and enhanced our monitoring systems. One is the ability to report incidents anonymously, whether you're a parent, staff member, student. And that monitoring system is monitored 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days. And if a kid calls, contact us, whether it's phone number or electronically, someone picks up that message and someone will notify us if it's an issue that warrants immediate attention. Now, it does not replace 911. It's more of a heads up if someone's going through a mental challenge or if there's a conflict going on or something that might impact school safety. The student is considering tip lines that may be concerned about another student who may want to harm themselves. But we have increased our monitoring presence to allow for 24 hours, 7 day a week, 365-day access. Alert monitoring. One of the things that we did not have in place a year ago was we did not have a notification system. First of all, everyone understands the internet is undefeated, right? The internet is undefeated. Something could happen right now and it'd be on Twitter in 2 minutes. So when you have a school emergency, before you can get information out accurately, okay, something's already out there and it may not be accurate and in that presence. And then it just compounds from there because the internet moves at a rapid pace. So we have created a rapid reporting system that goes directly to cell phones. We're registering parents and students for that alert system now, similar to organizations like Virginia Tech who've had shootings in the past. They needed an alert system that would automatically go to phones if there was something an emergency happening in one of our schools. So we've implemented that system as well. And we've continued to work on our internal security policies, such as encouraging now our staff to keep doors locked. We want to make sure that in our schools that we are hardening our targets. So that means locked doors, that means door security, making sure that we're really screening visitors to our schools, making sure they're consistent and standard practices in place, and that's really been a heavy focus of ours this year moving into the new year. So we'll continue to work on school safety procedures, but really I always emphasize that the most important deterrent in our schools is a student who sees something and says something, and a parent who puts that gun away, makes sure it's locked and concealed, knows who their child's friends are, it has a good relationship with someone in the school building, so if they see something that may be of a challenge for schools, to give us some type of call, let us know if there's something going on with their child or someone else. What we receive from our students and our parents allows us to keep schools safe as well, in addition to our police officers. So that's where we're focused this year, and those enhancements, I believe, will have some great results.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. And I'm just going to take a minute to say good evening to everyone, and thank you for being here. So I'm just going to piggyback a little bit on what Reverend Maxwell stated. Although I was not here for the spring meeting that you had, I did listen to some of it. And I know that one of the things that you talked about was the upcoming summer school. You talked about the summer program for students that did not make satisfactory progress scores on their benchmarks. Can you tell us a little bit about the summer school for these students, possibly how many students attended, how well they did, and what are the plans to follow up?
Good. So Dr. Best mentioned benchmarks. Benchmarks are, when we were in school, we didn't necessarily have benchmarks. We actually test our students at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, and end of the year for growth in reading and growth in math. Coming out of a pandemic, and over the course of the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic, it was very important to make sure we knew how many students had deficiencies in reading and math in particular. So what we saw was that we targeted students who were not only reading on grade level, but students who may have not been making adequate growth based on those assessments. And we encouraged parents to enroll their children into summer school. We actually grew summer school by probably over 50% this past year. Over 3,000 students attended, and we doubled the number of students attending middle school for summer programming as well. We also changed the format of our summer school programs to allow morning remedial support in reading and math, and focus on that. And then the afternoons were on enrichment, with the stuff the kids like, whether it's STEM-related activities, whether it's theater arts, whether it's something that, that they like to do, music production. There were a lot of fun opportunities as well in the afternoons. And as always, we've made an effort to provide food and breakfast and lunch for our students who attend summer programming. So we had over 3,000 students, doubled the size of students in middle school who attended summer programming. High school kind of remains the same. If kids had to, credit recovery, if they failed a class, needed to retake the class, if they were there to get ahead, those opportunities were still provided. And we still provided a lot of enrichment select programs. So those kids who were doing well academically, if they wanted to get into music production, they wanted to do something with STEM activities, if they wanted to do something in the arts, we had plenty of opportunities through our partnerships to continue to offer those, which we do a lot more in Newport News than a lot of other school divisions in terms of summer programming for students through our Summer Spark initiative. So we're happy to say that we had a good turnout of students who were identified below benchmark who attended summer programming. Now, it wasn't very long this summer. We're talking two weeks of really intense summer remedial support. But if we hadn't offered that, these kids would not have gotten at least that jump on their start to their school year. So our goal this year is to continue to monitor those students' progress through growth assessments to see how well, not only how well whether they should continue to show academic progress, both by grade, in terms of grades, but also in terms of growth. And that is where we continue to work on our students. We also provide a lot of wraparound supports and interventions when we see students are struggling with their with mastering the content, no matter what their grade level may be. We provide a lot of we call them tier 2 supports to ensure that students are getting academic supports. We actually have hired a company called FEV Tutors to support our tutoring initiatives, to enhance our tutoring initiatives across the division.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Reverend Maxwell also touched on teacher retention. Virginia, as most states continue to face Virginia, as with most other states, continue to face a critical teacher shortage. And this is certainly true in the Hampton Roads region. It has been reported that Newport News has over 200 teacher vacancies. Tell us how you're managing these staff shortages and coping with retention of staff.
Okay, so with retention, this is we're living in post-pandemic, but even prior to the pandemic, if you were a data analytics person, you could easily see that we had an entire workforce of teachers, administrators, superintendents, bus drivers who were at or near retirement age, and we did not have enough folks coming into the workforce who were going to replace those folks. And as early as 4 or 5 years ago, we started telling many of our elected officials, as we worked on budgets, as many of our, both at the state level and locally, that we're going to have a significant challenge moving forward with maintaining status quo or getting ahead in our schools, because our state institutions of higher learning are not putting out enough teachers, certified teachers or eligible teachers, to replenish the workforce that's going to retire in the near future. Now, the pandemic came along, and and it got tough. And it got tough. Folks were worried about their safety. They were working at home. Some didn't want to come back. There were a lot, for good, bad, or indifferent, a lot of folks were eligible to retire and chose to do so and move on to, and then some folks chose to move on to other professions because there were other opportunities that were opening up as well. So we are where we are today, and it's not just a Newport News problem. It is a national issue with teacher licensure and supports, and making sure that we can have a competent adult in every one of our classrooms. Now, with that being said, it doesn't help when your state is not in the top 15% or 20% in terms of paid salaries for teachers. Okay, when you're not in that upper echelon and you're not competing very well state to state, okay, it's hard to build that teacher workforce, and I would like to see more effort at the state level in providing support for increasing teachers' pay, also providing, encouraging universities to provide more support for teacher training, where maybe tuition assistance, maybe tuition forgiveness. We have to continue to replenish that pipeline of folks coming into the teacher profession, and allow easy transition from folks who choose to change a career to go into teaching. That can be very challenging for a lot of folks. So how we're dealing with our teacher challenges right now is we're being very creative, not only with our master scheduling, okay, we're maximizing the workforce that we have in our schools and making sure teachers are working with each other. We're using some long-term subs, some are certified, some are content experts, but they're not licensed. So we may have them paired up with other teachers and they plan together so that that person has supports. We also have hired companies that have individuals who can come in who are content experts who can work with long-term subs to make sure that the kids are getting competent instruction in the classroom. And we've contracted a company that also provides us with virtual instruction that allows us to have a person who is a licensed teacher zoom into the classroom while we have an adult in the classroom with the kids facilitating the learning process that's taking place. But we're being very creative right now to try to make sure that we have ways to make sure kids come to school and are engaged with a competent teacher and they're getting quality instruction on a day-to-day basis. It's not ideal, but it's definitely going to continue to ensure our kids are learning and that they are not just sitting in the class with the person that's not licensed and there's no support from an instructional standpoint. Other school divisions are doing a lot of the same things. We're continuing to lead the area and the region. Thank you to the city council and our school board. We lead the area. We have the highest teacher salaries on the peninsula. Okay, so don't go anywhere else. We can tell you, I tell my folks, you're not going to find a higher teacher salary scale than Newport News. And we pay a $6,000 bonus right now for teachers in hard-to-fill areas. We're continuing that bonus well into the school year. That's more than any other division on the peninsula. So compensation is not for us is not going to be the hurdle that keeps folks that fills our ranks. We want to make sure that we are competitive and remain competitive, and we need our continued support from our local government and our school board in order to do that, because in an urban school division, we have to have competent teachers. Our babies deserve that, and they need that in order for them to learn and do well. So it will be a challenge for a few years to come until some things happen at the state and national level to make teaching the profession of choice, to make sure that teachers can have a living wage. So that, you know, how many of you have gone places in the afternoons and your waitress or the person that's checking you in or some other is a teacher working a second job? Okay, I've been to plenty of places like that where my waitress was one of my teachers. Okay, that is some of the challenge. That's why folks have left some of public education in many cases. They want to do like you. They want to go to work and come home. Okay, so we have to make sure that we're working hard on all ends at the state level, local level, to make sure that our folks are well compensated, that we have adequate training and bringing in professionals. And I think if you give me 100%, if you fill 100% of my teaching positions, there's no way our kids can't continue to excel. Okay, but the challenge right now is not the quality, is not whether our kids can learn, is whether we can get someone in the classroom to make sure they can who can teach them. And we have to continue to be very diligent about that, and we're working very hard at that right at this time.
Okay. Dr. Parker, now that schools are open, tell us how the opening went and how is the virtual component working for students who elected the virtual education?
So what we found over the pandemic was there are some kids who do very well learning virtually. And I have my own thoughts about socialization and those kind of things, but there are some kids who benefit from having a free enough schedule where they can take courses virtually and also have other things that they're engaged in, whether it's working, whether we have a young lady who's in our virtual learning academy who's a gymnast, and other kids who do other things that need to train during the day. So we've provided that flexibility by creating a virtual learning academy. That virtual learning academy this year is expanded to grades 6 through 12, and we have over 400 kids in that virtual learning academy. And when we look at their scores, their SOL performance last year, they either met or exceeded the kids who were in school, who were physically coming to classes, because these kids are attending virtual learning academy by choice. And they have to fit a profile where they will continue to be, where they're going to be the kind of student who's going to be engaged online, who's going to continue to turn in their assignments. These are synchronous classes, which means the teacher is meeting with them every day online, and they're getting they're getting virtual synchronous instruction and not as much asynchronous instruction where they're just going online, picking up an assignment and working independently. So the Virtual Learning Academy is thriving. It is by choice and selection. And if students in the Virtual Learning Academy are not doing well academically, they are processed out of that Virtual Learning Academy, because we still have a responsibility, no matter what the format is, to make sure our students are successful. So we're seeing great results at this time, and we'll continue to see that program thrive. And the teachers are rock stars. The ones who are choosing to teach that format, and they're doing a great job after their training and making sure those kids are getting quality instruction through a virtual format.
Okay. And you touched on SOL scores, Dr. Parker, and we know that the most recent SOL test scores show an improvement over the 2021-22 scores. But tell us how Newport News Public Schools fared with the state SOL averages, and also share with us the plans for closing the achievement gaps and increasing total student achievement as measured by the SOL in core academic areas.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we do trail the state in terms of state average. Now, I want to talk about that piece real quick. We're an urban school division, right? So there are rural school divisions, there are suburban school divisions, and there are urban school divisions. They're not all the same, right? So when we look at apples to apples, we compare ourselves in many cases with other urban school divisions. Because if I go and compare myself with a rural school division with 5 schools, okay, that's not an accurate comparison of who we are. We have, a lot of folks don't understand that in the urban school division, we have well over 400, on a given year, we have anywhere between 400 and 500 McKinney-Vento students, which are homeless kids in our school division. That's enough to fill an elementary school, okay? We're not the same as Virginia Beach or other places. So we want to make sure we understand we serve the population who we have, and we continue to maximize the education for the student, for whoever walks in the door in our school buildings every day. So what I compare our progress with is, one, our comparison over years coming out of a pandemic. So I would look at 2019, 2020, and 2022, and then I look at other urban school divisions that have similar demographics as us and compare our progress with those school divisions. Okay, that is a more accurate comparison of how our schools are doing, because they have similar challenges. Now, that said, we focused over the pandemic on reading and math. We created a K-12 literacy program. We didn't wait to come out of the pandemic to start saying, okay, we're going to wait till this weather clears and then we're going to step out into the sunshine. Over the pandemic, we redeveloped a K-12 literacy initiative. We expanded our growth model assessments to identify student growth in reading, and we increased the amount of growth benchmark type assessments we would give students, and remedial support in reading and math. And we provided training to all of our elementary teachers in the science of reading, which is called letters training. And that's now, we started it a year before the state required it. Okay, so coming out of the pandemic, now the state has an initiative to make sure everyone is trained in the science of reading. We started that 2 years ago, over the pandemic. So at this particular point, the majority of our elementary teachers have been trained in letters training, which is how to teach reading on a more effective scale using science-based, research-based techniques. So what we saw in our testing last year was we saw growth in reading in SOLs, and we saw growth in math, and we saw less schools decline based on the pandemic, pre-pandemic scores. And we also saw a lot of students earn growth based on the SOL performance assessment in those areas. Science was, most of our science during the pandemic was asynchronous, and the science SOL test has been changing, so the curriculum for the science SOL has changed. So in many cases, most across the state, we saw science scores dipping this year, but usually when they change the curriculum in science and change the assessment, you see a dip and then it normalizes over a 3-year period. So I'm just gonna say it, Dr. Best, some politicians jumped on that and tried to say that meant schools were not performing because they saw a dip in scores over a test that was based on a revised curriculum. It takes 3 years, usually when you change a curriculum, and science is in the process of changing standards, and they're changing their assessment. It takes about a 3-year period for scores to normalize as teachers get acclimated to that new curriculum and get acclimated to the new assessment. Okay, so we're in the process. That's why science dipped across the state for everyone. So we are focused on science this year. We're also focused on making sure that our students do well in those areas, making sure that we're continuing to see growth in reading and math. And our ultimate goal is to be fully accredited. Now, it's going to take a lot of work. There's something called, we understand we have some classrooms who do not have a licensed teacher in those classrooms, but we're providing the supports needed to those individuals in the classroom to provide competent and quality instruction to our students. So it's going to be a challenge and it's going to be a process. But I believe that we're doing the right work with our kids. We need our parents to continue to support our efforts in reading and math to make sure kids are really focused on growth and making sure that they're actually reading in the home, they're reading in their spare time, and we need to continue to make sure our schools are academic environments. So we do feel we're making adequate progress, but we need to we can do so much more, and there's still a lot of work to do.
Okay. Dr. Parker, for Huntington, tell us about the building of Huntington, and when will we see some development?
Well, Huntington's already in the actual school existing structure is already in the first stage of demolition, and the Huntington Middle School design is moving forward and being presented. We're starting to work with the architect to start getting stakeholder feedback. So just recently, this week, the architect met with the staff members at Huntington Middle School, the principal, some teachers. They even met with students to start sharing some of the design work for the new Huntington Middle School. In accordance with our memorandum of understanding with the city, the school board will approve that design work prior to moving forward with the project. So we're anxiously looking forward to the architect finishing the design process, which is basically all of the layouts of what the school will look like, what the classrooms will look like, and so forth, the schematics, and bringing that to the school board for their consideration as well as we move that project forward. But work is taking place. It is still anticipated that the building will open in the fall of 2024. That is our goal. Now, we do have some challenges. There'll be supply chain issues. There'll be labor issues, but we're hoping that the wind, like I said, we're not waiting for the focusing on the rain. We're going to see if this thing comes through, but that is the targeted opening date of fall 2024.
Okay. While we're talking about the Southeast community, there is significant development in that part of the city, featuring new family housing. Will there be enough schools in the community for this student population?
Question. So I know one city project is moving forward, and that is a pre-K school that the city has partnered with an organization to build a pre-K that will provide education for 3- and 4-year-olds in the city, and that will help us. We have a very good pre-K program in the Southeast community at Marshall Early Learning Center, but they always have a waiting list. So adding that extra pre-K center, even though it's not a Newport News school, will be very helpful with allowing us parents in the Southeast community to get a jump on education for their 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds. So that is, I think that's going to be a very good support for Newport News Public Schools. I'm looking forward to that project coming through, and I thank the city for the vision of adding an additional preschool experience in that community. In terms of elementary, middle, and high, we're well equipped to accommodate growth in the Southeast community. So if we see families moving in, we have room. Huntington Middle School will be built to accommodate 600 students. I think when we closed the doors at Huntington, we were sitting around anywhere between 400 to 450 students. Heritage High School has plenty of room for growth. And I'll give you, even though Heritage High School and Woodside High School were built on the same floor plan. Okay, give or take a few nuances. Woodside is right now today accommodating almost nearly 2,000 students. Now it's packed, but that facility is accommodating over 2,000 students. Heritage High School, that just a high school, is a little bit over 1,200. So there's plenty of room at Heritage High School for additional students. And then you have Booker T, Discovery STEM, Newsom Park has plenty of room in it. There's plenty of room in our schools in the Southeast community to accommodate growth. And we're so excited about the CNI project because one, it's really a community, a project that embraces the community, and hopefully we'll see families, new single parent homes, families moving into the community, and we hope to see the schools really thrive in the Southeast community moving forward based on some of those great projects that are taking place.
Okay, I'm going to go back a little bit to that question because I get asked this question all the time about the community schools in the Southeast community. We know that there are schools, but can you tell us a little bit about the community schools, and are there any plans, any discussions as to how to make it more equitable for those students that actually live in the Southeast community to go possibly to some schools in their community? Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Well, the only thing I can tell you is, in terms of that, is at Huntington Middle School will be a completely zoned school for the Southeast community. I know that's one, the one new school that's being considered right now will be zoned for the Southeast community. So students will not have to travel outside of the community to attend Huntington Middle School. And it will be a magnet program, which will also compete and attract students from other areas. The structure that we have put in place over time in the Southeast communities, several structures. In order for us to move to community schools, we would have to re-equip those. We would have to retool those structures. Those are things that I would probably need the community, the city, and the school board to support in order to just make those schools zoned schools. We have obviously have a busing mandate from the 70s that still requires us to transport students from a portion of the Southeast community to the middle portion of the city. We also have magnet programs that we've developed and programs like the Achievable Dream that are select programs and students have to apply to attend. So because we have those programs at some of our schools, we have students who may not be zoned in the Southeast community who attend and take advantage of some of those programs, but you also still have at each one of those schools students who live in the Southeast community attending those schools. So they're not completely community schools as the question is asked, but they do serve students in the Southeast community. But if we want those schools to only be community-based schools, then we would have to retool those structures that we already have in place, including the busing mandate. We'd have to revisit that and possibly remove it.
Okay. Dr. Parker. Tell us about the status of the Tier 2 schools regarding name changes to more diverse names.
Oh, that's a good one, because without my notes, I'm trying to remember all the Tier 2. We did change a few school names with the board support last year, and Dr. Best, I'm trying to get the essence of that question. Are you asking, are there going to be more?
Typically, but where are we in the process, and what is the plan? Okay. You don't have to tell us which school and what name, that type of thing.
So currently, we do have a committee that is reviewing school names and making recommendations to the school board. So that process continues on with the potential renaming of schools, and their recommendations come to the board after careful consideration of any name changes. And currently, I think the next round of those potential, an update on those Tier 2 schools will be moving forward this year to the school board at a point. We have completed all of the Tier 1 schools that were identified as more pressing in terms of changing names, and and the process really drives what tier they're on. So sometimes you have a geographic area that may name maybe a plantation that owned slaves, right? But it's that geographic area doesn't need to be changed because it's a geographic area, right? So there's several things that have to weigh into those decisions as far as whether to go and change. Now, it's easier when it's a person who was a segregationist or a slave owner or some other. That's a lot easier. Now, those were the tier 1 schools. But when you start talking about going and looking at geographic areas, and because there was a plantation named this or that named that, it's not named after the family that owned the slaves, those types of things. There's a lot of other considerations that come into place before weighing those options before changing the names of a school that's part of a community. And in particular, schools that possibly have graduates who that is their school. I was in high school when, in Portsmouth, when Manor High School, recently I moved to Chesapeake, it was changed to Wilson High School. And I remember how that felt, to have my high school name changed because they closed Woodrow Wilson in Portsmouth, and they said, oh, we'll just take the name and change Manor into Woodrow Wilson. Okay, that was tough for a lot of alumni. Okay, and they recently changed it back to Manor, but I also mentioned that the higher you get in education and what your diploma's written on, that means a lot to a lot of folks. When their mothers went there, sons went there, family went there, it means a lot, and you need to really weigh those considerations before making it. Are you just changing it because of if it's a geographic location? Is it something that directly attributes to slavery, or something that might have oppressed people, no matter who they may have been? That committee has some tough decisions to weigh, and as they move forward with those types of decisions. So I don't envy the job of the school board to review those. I obviously make a recommendation as they come to me, and the committee will be making any further recommendations will come to me this year as we move forward with the tier 2 schools.
Okay. Dr. Parker, as we look at the news daily, there are different stories about divisions across the state and across the country regarding banning books, and parents have problems with particular books. What's going on in Newport News as far as books are concerned?
Well, I never shy away from saying things because I had a local elected official laugh at me one day when I said I'm not a politician. I'm not a politician, okay? So I'm an educator, and I'm a firm advocate for children. That's what I am. I just happen to also run a school division and that serves children. That being said, it really disheartens me to see the level of politicization of education these days, and how these type of issues have become so divisive in our public education system. I believe that we have to raise up public education and raise up the great work that folks do in order to educate our children, and try to minimize these divisive issues that try to pull us apart, whether it's a community, whether it's parents against teachers, whether it's whatever it may be. I believe that as we continue to see these divisive issues come up, it's only going to make public education a harder field for people to enter and feel that they can do their best work. That said, I would say that I don't believe that any inappropriate material should be provided and taught to children. But I do believe that as kids get older and you have to provide context in terms of educating them, okay, that we should not have things that are restricted, inappropriately restricted, because someone may be offended by some content because of their religious or political background. So I do believe we need to think carefully about the content and materials that are in our schools, and we should have processes in place to review that content and make informed decisions, whether it's appropriate based on the age of a level of the child, whether it's appropriate for and needed for their education, for educational purposes, and whether we're continuing to provide children with choice in the type of materials that they choose to read or investigate on their own. Because because another aspect of it also is sometimes kids may want to pick up a book and learn more about themselves or what they're going through in their life, and someone just may be offended by that material because of their own religious foundation or political foundation, whatever it may be. So we have to also think about what is this child's right to pick up material and have access to material if it's age appropriate, if it's something that that we have vetted, and if there's a concern that we have a process in place to review it and make sure that there's an informed decision on whether it's appropriate to be in our schools. But I do believe in all of those things. But I believe, but what is disheartening to me is that it's being politicized, driven for political purposes. And I don't believe that anything good is going to come out of separating people and ostracizing and educators, people who are trying to do the best work possible in our classrooms, because they feel, and we talk about creativity, we talk about them exposing kids to real world situations, we talk about exposing children to their culture and their history, okay? What's next? What's next? In terms of defining what's inappropriate, in terms of content. So that's, that to me, I think needs to be closely monitored, and we need to make sure that we're not making those type of decisions because one group feels that we need to take all of this information out of schools and make sure that something is not being taught because they don't feel that it's something that appropriately reflects their culture or their viewpoints or their personal views or political views.
I have two more questions. Tell us a little bit more, you touched on this, about the pre-K population. Approximately what % of qualified students receive service?
In terms of pre-K?
Yes.
Well, we have 5 pre-K centers and good information. I should have brought some data charts here. We're serving, on average, up to 900 kids in pre-K. So I just saw that today. So we're serving roughly around 900. And even with that, in a division that has over 26,000 students, we still have waiting lists. Mm-hmm. So could we expand? And then there's also some states and some areas that provide pre-K services to 3-year-olds. We do not provide service to 3-year-olds. So if we ever expand to 3-year-olds, we're going to need a lot of teachers and we're going to need some more space. So we're already looking at our capacity in our schools just in case the state ever comes down and says, and I'm sure they will provide some level of funding, just in case they come down and say, hey, we want 3-year-olds to have all our schools to serve 3-year-olds in the same way we're serving currently 4-year-olds. But right now, roughly over 900, we do have waiting lists throughout the city on pre-K enrollment. Would love to see us be able to do more, but in terms of funding, we usually max out on the funding that we're provided for our pre-K services.
Okay. And my final question is, tell us what support you would like from community organizations such as the NAACP.
And I think I mentioned that the last time I came to speak on Pastor Maxwell's radio station, on the radio station here, I mentioned the need to be vigilant, that the time, there's a time to march and there's a time to vote, right? And I do firmly believe that public education is under attack for political purposes. I do believe that it should be raised up. It's a great profession. It's a noble profession. Okay, I've served over 29 years, and I can tell you I couldn't think of a better way to serve in my community than in the service of children. But what I do believe through a lot of the politics that are taking place these days, that public education is under attack. And I believe that the ultimate goal of that is to reduce funding to public education and start moving funding to other places. And with that being said, I believe that, that we need to remain vigilant, protect public education, make sure it remains well funded, make sure we can put great teachers in our classrooms, and that they're able to serve our communities with distinction. And we need to fight any efforts to pull apart the public education system. Okay? And I think that's where organizations like the NAACP and other organizations as well, and our voting base, our citizens in our community, need to rally around our elected officials and make sure that they are firmly supportive of our public education system and making sure that we're maximizing our resources to make sure that we can put the best product out there for our kids. Okay, it's not a matter of, and this is economics. This is community building. This is safety, public safety. Can you think of anything that a quality public education system doesn't impact in the local community that everyone wants? Okay, we want you, when you go to the hospital, that person probably that's either that nurse or doctor probably came from a public education school, a public school. Okay, you want to make sure that you have competent and qualified police officers and other people in your community. And you want to make sure the person who lives next door to you, okay, is that you live in a safe neighborhood. Okay? When we actually educate folks and make sure we're doing the right things, our community benefits from it. So we have to make sure that we're doing that. Now, I always say it this way. There's time to march and there's time to vote, right? And there's time to advocate. If all of this legislation comes out of place and we start defunding schools and moving money here and starting a bunch of other systems, okay, we can march all the way to Richmond, but that doesn't change it. The damage is already done. So that's the point I always make. We have to be vigilant now before those changes take place. But believe me, they are going to come if we in a few election cycles, if we do not remain vigilant. And I'm not going to talk about any political affiliations. I'm an educator, I'm not a politician. But I do feel the pressure that we're getting from sources who want to see public dollars move out of public education and possibly go other places. Okay? So that's pretty much all I have to say. Dr. Best is just remain engaged. And the last part of that is we have to be able to freely teach our children their history. In context. In context. So I know folks want to revise curriculum and want to change curriculum and those kind of things. I think we need to stay very attentive to what's being pulled out. I mean, and I'm going to give you a good example, and I'll leave it alone. A few years ago, in one state, they took the word slavery out of the curriculum. Can you teach that period of history without saying the word slavery? Right? They use words like Great Migration and other things. Okay, but they took the word out because that word was offensive to some other people. Okay, we don't want to whitewash our curriculum so that we can't teach our kids about their own culture and their history. Is everybody with me there? Mm-hmm. So that happens when people are not vigilant and we don't remain attached to what's going to happen. Okay, so we need to make sure we keep an eye on those kind of things because those kind of things can happen. They've already happened in some other states. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Parker, I know that I've been all over the place with questions, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to do closing remarks. But I would just first like to say that public education is very, very important, and the things that the teachers and the employees do for Newport News Public Schools, they're making a difference in the lives of students every day. I happen to be a fan of Abbott Elementary, and I saw the creator of that program, and she was on a talk show. And the school is called Abbott Elementary, and the name of that program is the name, she named it after her 6th grade teacher. And they had her 6th grade teacher actually on one of the talk programs, and she never knew that she made that kind of impact in that child's life. But what we do in education every single day is making a difference in the life of children, and it's making it better for society as a whole. I had an opportunity to attend a conference in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, and Newport News Public Schools presented at that conference. And we talked about a program where we have received a national award. And I'm just going to ask you in your closing remarks, maybe you could say something about that and a few other positive things that we're doing in Newport News. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for the opportunity to the NAACP, and thank you, Dr. Parker.
Thank you, Dr. Best. So we received a national award for a program called TEAMS. And TEAMS is a program that provides mental health and counseling for students. My first year here at Newport News, we had a young man who was killed at one of our high schools, and that was in 2018. And we had to do a lot of wraparound supports and work to do with the school community, the kids, the staff. There was a lot of mourning, not only in the school but in the community. And the questions were asked was, how can we better support our constituents when we have these type of serious issues that take place? About 2 months after that, we had a student commit suicide at another high school. And it became very apparent that we needed to be able to not only provide some level of care for our students, but also we needed to have systems in place when a student was having some level of mental challenge and was going to harm themselves, that we had a reporting system in place and we had the supports in place to assist as best possible when these type of incidents arise. So in meeting with my staff, we developed, we figured we need to have mental health supports in our schools, people who could provide actual mental health counseling. Now, if you don't know about professional school counselors, they are great for building relationships, for academic counseling, for other counseling, but they are not mental health counselors. They do not provide mental health service to students. So if a student has a mental health challenge, a school counselor is not, now there is an endorsement that a school counselor can get that would qualify them to provide mental health support, but our professional school counselors are not mental health providers, right? So we started staffing clinically licensed social workers and continue to add psychologists in our school division so that we could provide our own mental health supports, and a parent in our community did not have to go out, whether they have insurance or not insurance, have to go out and find a therapist for their child. So over the course of since that time, we've continued to build our ability to provide that support to students and staff. And we've developed a layered system of mental health care in our school division that starts at the school level. We've trained all of our teachers to identify students who may have mental health or who may have gone through trauma. So they're trauma informed, they're mentally health aware. We provide supports and programs for students that have mental health challenges, and we provide ongoing support. So we now have therapists in our school division who actually have students on a caseload who provide that assistance that students and families may need, so they do not have to go out on their own and seek mental health therapists. We also, over COVID, we provided that service virtually. So we've learned that service can be provided on a virtual basis as well. So because we're so well equipped to provide those type of supports, when we presented nationally and we asked our team to go out and provide some information on their program, they received a national award for the level of care and service that we provide students. We're very proud of that in Newport News, that we have that level of care for students and are really in tune with what their mental needs are. Some other things that are going well we're focused on this year, and I'll close out my thoughts. One of the greatest challenges we will face this year outside of a teacher shortage is attendance. It's school attendance. So Pastor Maxwell, I said when we started the summer program, I begged parents to send your kids to summer school. So here's my second beg. Please make sure that your child is attending school regularly this year. We can't teach them when they're home. Okay, if we're going to have great academic outcomes, we have to have kids in school. And if there are challenges to your child getting to school or a family crisis, we are there to support them. I just mentioned the Teams program. We can provide some of those wraparound supports, but we will be super focused on attendance this year and attendance-related issues or problems. And we want parents to partner with us, not fight us. Because when we are calling because we haven't seen your child in 1 or 2 days or 3 days, we need you to pick the phone up and we need to support you and your child. So please get that word out in the community. I want to see our attendance really be stellar in all of our schools. And we know there's a challenge right now because last year they did not show strong attendance trends. And I believe academic outcomes will closely follow that. Kids who are not in school tend to not do well in school. So that is going to be our greatest challenge this year for students and for families, ensuring that we have great attendance in our schools, and we want everyone's support and encouraging parents to be very diligent about getting their children in school this year. Okay, so with that, Dr. Best, I'll close my remarks, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
I believe we have a couple of minutes for maybe a couple of audience questions. Is that correct? Very brief. All right, Mr. Bullock will take that.
Questions for Dr. Parker. Any questions for Dr. Parker? Okay. Very briefly. No stories.
No stories. Well, you know you're handing this to a politician. Real quick, Dr. Parker, what would it take to provide pre-K services for every eligible child in Newport News?
We would definitely have to staff accordingly for it. We do believe we could fit and we're just talking 4-year-olds. Okay, we do believe that we can fit the needs with the additional classes across the city, and we've already assessed that. But we would probably need to probably add anywhere between 30 to 40 teachers. So it would be expensive in that area. That's the most expensive component of it. But if the funding is available, we'd love to take on the challenge and make sure that any 4-year-old in our community has an opportunity to go to school.
Hi, I'm new to learning some of this. The pre-K, the 4-year-olds, what are we actually teaching 4-year-olds? What are we teaching that early?
Well, there is a curriculum, and actually there's a standard curriculum that was supported by the University of Virginia for pre-K education. A lot of it, too, is socialization, behavior management and routine. Then you still are doing the rubrics of learning their name, learning their, fundamentally reading to them so they get used to vowel sounds and the formal parts. And you still can teach math to pre-K students. So there's still a curriculum that is academic for pre-K students. And you can tell, it's like night and day, and Dr. Best would know this, it's like night and day between a student who has been prepared for kindergarten and a student who has not had a pre-K experience.
Hi, Dr. Parker. I have a quick question. My daughter went through some trauma through the pandemic. And when she came back to school, I didn't know about that resources, you said team, because she was attending CHKD for that trauma. And I didn't know nothing about it. And I talked with the counselors, and they knew about what she was going through, but no one never talked to me about that resources.
I wish we would have caught her if there, and sometimes, unfortunately, we catch them through the symptoms. So if there's a crisis in the family and she's not attending school, or there's a behavior issues or something of that nature, it's hard to catch it during a pandemic because they're not in school every day. So that's probably why, when I say that they maintain their caseload, many of the students that they were contacting were already on their caseload before the pandemic. They did take some referrals, but they continued to touch in on the kids who were already on their caseload. So it probably did not get as many new referrals during the pandemic because kids were not in school, unfortunately.
How can the general public help you and within the school, like mentoring programs or something like that? Because you have a significant number of people who have already retired. They have time on their hands. How can we support you in furthering education of kids?
And there's a variety of ways that the community can help. We have a lot of retirees in our community. We have professionals who would like to still contribute and give, whether they were educators or not. Our goal is to have a mentoring program in every one of our schools. We do have a program called RISE, and for our girls, Bloom. And we are partnering with local organizations and individuals who want to do some level of mentoring or support for students across our division. So if you'd like to get involved with mentoring students or at least adopt a school or whatever it may be, we have resources that will allow training for that and allow you access to work with students in our schools. The other piece is, and many people might not know this, but an elementary teacher's job is a very difficult job. And you've probably had grandchildren or other things, and you understand that every now and then, after a while, you need a break. So think of a person that has to be with 30 kids, 28 to 25 kids all day long. So we always are trying to increase ways that we can get monitors in our schools, cafeteria monitors, playground monitors, folks that could support schools during the day, and that's for pay. That's for pay, who would be allow teachers to detach from their class for a moment, go and take a break, make a phone call, check in with their kids. It's very tough for elementary teachers, and especially during this shortage, because we've seen a shortage of cafeteria monitors, playground monitors, and other things, and the teachers have had to stay connected with their kids all day long and not have had an opportunity they've had to eat with their classes, they've had to do all of these things, and it's very frustrating and very difficult. So if we really want to make sure that our teachers stay with us and that this profession is raised up, we need to get those supports back into our buildings. And there are individuals that are retired, that are maybe in our community that might want a part-time job, whatever it may be, who could support us. So we're always looking for roles like that in our buildings to help our teachers out.
All right.
And bus drivers. If you can drive and have a good driver's license, we're always looking for someone who'd like to get a CDL and drive and drive our buses, because
and your substitutes
and
too.
substitutes. Yes, sir.
Wow, can we give them a hand? Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Best. Thank you so much for always being so thorough with your questions. Thank you, Dr. Parker, for always showing up. Thank you, crowd, for being here even in the midst of a pandemic, and thank you all who are streaming. We do apologize for not being able to Zoom. Thank you for coming. Brother Coleman, who partners with us, the Boys and Girls Club, and taking care of our kids. I'm always big on taking care of the kids. That's why we always make sure that we have a safe place for the kids after school, and we love partnering with you. So thank you, because he gonna get in trouble because he was talking about the retired people volunteering. They don't like when you do that, but he about to mess up. But it's good though. I appreciate you. You got the right spirit, amen. Because we put them to work, but with you all coming, it's definitely easy. Got something to say real quick. First of all, we've done a lot of things together. First of all, I love partnering with you all. We partner with the Universalist Fellowship of the Peninsula. They right here. Thank you so much for the grant, amen, that we will get once we apply, amen. We thank them so much. We partner with the Boys and Girls Club. We've helped hold the police accountable together. I mean, my goodness, we've hired the last 3 assistant chiefs of police together. We've marched together. We started the NAACP chapter for the youth together. We started the CNU college chapter together. Man, we've helped to get the displaced kids from the Seaview lost apartments together. We paid for their deposits together and found them below market value rent together. The NAACP, you all have done so much. We partnered so well together. When people thought we shouldn't partner with certain organizations, like people don't know why we did with the police so closely, but we hired the last 3 assistant chiefs. I feel like my people are safe because I feel like the community policing is really going well, and the last 3 chiefs, assistant chiefs that we chose were hired, all right? So I just thank you all for partnering. That's why it's with a heavy heart that I know it's time for me to go into a different era of my life. Not just because of myself, but it's I guess a little, some resistance going on with some of the people on the state that feel like, I guess, you can't really run for office and serve as a president at the same time, although our own Congressman Bobby Scott has done it, even served as a year. We've had people over across the water to do it. We've had people in Kansas do it. But sometimes people pick and choose what they want to do. I'm not here to call names, but I can just feel when people come, they're really not coming to help me. They coming to see what can they see what I do wrong. And I don't have the energy to continue to deal with that. because we've done so much together. And this organization is about unity and bringing people together. And I don't want to be a distraction. My committee, I love y'all because y'all keep telling me to stay. But I know in a few months I'm not going to be here anyway. And I know we've been in so many different places. We went from place to place to make sure that we unified the city. But when COVID hit, we just started dealing with here. And just know, even though I'll be gone, I'll still be here. Amen. So I'm going to still work with you. I'm going to still deal with you. I'm still going to be there. And at first I was getting bitter with individuals that were coming against me in my mind for no apparent reason, because those things are not in the bylaws. Those bylaws were attempted to be put into play, but they never were passed, okay? And so there's no way saying that you can't do it. But I don't do this to make a name for myself. I do this for service. And you never want to be a distraction. And the revelation I had when I was sitting right there, you asked me, was I okay? I believe what God was telling me is, an eagle, when they in the nest, they just let, it be comfortable. The mama make the nest real comfortable, and the birds can be cool, and they be chill in the nest. But when the mama ready for them to get out, she starts turning the nest upside down. And the sticks and the debris and the pointies that would be outside of it begin to point inside, and it makes the nest uncomfortable. And sometimes when God is ready for you to move in another era of your life, he'll make that nest uncomfortable. And sometimes what the devil meant for evil, God meant for good. So when people come against you, sometimes it's not for your demise. It's for God to make you stronger. It's for him to get the chafe out of you. It's for him to build your character. It's for you to be able to smile in their face, even though you know they hating on you. And you got to learn how to do that, because God is always going to make sure he doesn't put more on you than you can bear. And when I tell you this, and I tell you this now, I'm NAACP to the heart, because we've done so much together. I mean, we've partnered together. We've done some things that I don't know how many people have done. I mean, we've had a good time together. All right. So I'm just letting y'all know I love you all, but I told you I just had to get to the education because that's my passion. And I was doing these forums before I became the NAACP president, because that's what I like to do. We bring people together when the water crisis. We brought people together when they had the knee on the man's neck for the 6 minutes or whatnot. We pulled a forum together and make sure that we had the lieutenant governor, we had all those different people here. And that's just what my heart is, of service. And that's why I think how God does it. We bring white people, Korean people, all types of people here to the NAACP, because we know it takes everyone to make this world better. And I think a lot of times we forget that the NAACP wasn't just started by African Americans. It was started by African American and Jews and people that were really making sure that they protected our people from being lynched. They protected our people from being strange fruit on trees. They protect our people from the separate but equal, the Jim Crow, the Plessy versus Ferguson, the Brown versus Board of Education. They begin to cover us. So that's why we love partnering with you. Thank you all so much, my Unitarian friends. Thank you all so much, Brother Coleman. Thank you all, everybody who's here. But I just want y'all to always keep that spirit. Don't hate anybody that comes against you, because everything happens for the good of those who are called according to his purpose. And God never makes mistakes. And so even though it's with a heavy heart and I'm vacillating, I'm going back and forth, I believe it's the best thing for the organization, because to continue to have some of the state people coming against our local organization is not going to help the organization grow. So hopefully they just have a personal thing against me, and they won't do anything when it comes to you. But I will say this right now. I believe, stand up, Miss Lady, Miss Jennifer Brooks, Mrs. Jennifer Brooks, got married and kept the same last name. I ain't marrying you unless you got the same last name as me. No, I'm just playing. But she is our vice president. She will begin, now that I'm resigning, she's our president. Please follow her as you follow me. She's going to be a great president. And you all are really going to be led into the next era of the way. Because I think a lot of times while ego begins to get in the way, we think we the only one can do it. And y'all really, y'all make me feel good. But I know that God begins to make sure that the transition of power moves on smoothly. But again, I'm not just doing it because I'm running for office or whatnot. I'm doing it because I feel like this will bring the organization more together, and maybe the bickering and the dichotomy or the unclearness of whatever they're trying to pass that has not passed. And maybe this will just be a good thing for the NAACP. I'm sorry, Brother Bullock. I know I couldn't talk to you because I know you would have been like, don't do it. So I appreciate you. Please don't leave. Thank you so much. I just thank all of you all right? We have a great organization. This organization is bigger than any one of us, and that's what I always say. You always have to put the vision before your personality, because that's what makes organizations fall, and that's what makes organizations become ineffective. When you begin to put yourself, your personality above the organization or the vision, you fail that organization. Because when you really begin to put the vision first, you won't worry about your own feelings. I know I've hurt some people's feelings in leadership, and you're gonna hurt people's feelings in leadership, because to really lead and have a vision, you have to say no far more than you say yes. Because it's narrow when you're trying to go somewhere where you know the organization should go. And I'm not saying I don't care about your feelings, but I'm saying I don't listen to my own feelings, but I really care about your feelings, but I can't make a decision based on your feelings. You have to make decisions based on what you feel God is telling you and what's the right thing for the organization and what's the right thing for the public good. Amen? So with that said, I appreciate you all. I love you all. Thank you all for the support. You all have been down with me for almost 4 years, and this has been a great, great journey. All right. Our secretary, she had a situation, and she can't get to her computer, so we'll just email you the minutes from last week and last meeting, and we'll email you. Well, they will email you. They will email you the minutes from the last meeting and the minutes from this meeting to make sure that you have those minutes, okay? All right. And they already talked about the voting. Come back the next time, October. What day did we say? I know we kept moving. Huh? The 25th? The 26th? You sure we said that? Hold on, y'all. You said 27th or 26th? Oh, Wednesday. Oh, yeah. Look at y'all. Y'all so smart. October the 26th is the next meeting. All right. Lord bless us all. Allow us to get home safe. In your name we pray. Amen. Move to adjourn the meeting. Second, go home.